I'm going to briefly introduce a friend of mine and a colleague of yours. He goes by Coach Fred as sort of a nickname, but he's Fred Schultz, who has been an advisor at this company since 1999. He's from New Jersey, Paramus, New Jersey, and he's got a wife, Lisa, 2 children, Andrew and Sydney. Andrew is 11, Sydney is 13 years old, and he's got a compelling story that I wanted you to hear personally, because it ties in the fact that he's an advisor, that he is in his community, that he strives every day to overcome obstacles but add value. And I think you're going to be extremely inspired by the story he has to share with you today. And it's also going to put things in perspective for you as you think about your career, what it means to be with clients, what it means to be with family and friends. And so without further ado, Coach Fred.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. If you could all just watch the video screens for a minute, I appreciate it.
I heard my wife start to cry. I haven't heard her cry since her grandmother died. I have prostate cancer? Who's gonna be there to help Fran with her retirement? Her husband died, I'm her financial planner. Who's gonna be at practice this week, making sure Tommy did his homework? He's the one that calls me Coach Fred. I gotta keep this from Sydney and Andrew. I can't let them watch me die. It's 6 months till I know if the cancer's even gone. I'm home on the couch. My wife Lisa's out buying adult Depends. But that's okay, because if I get through wearing those, my next step is some sort of feminine pad. Am I gonna be able to have sex again? 18 months till I know that. But today, I gotta get to the office when she gets home. There's a global financial crisis, and Ron, and Jean, and Mary, and Frank, and Scott, they need me. Their money's protected. Joe and I have built the portfolios to withstand the global financial crisis, but I'm the one that helps them sleep at night. And what about my kids? Who's gonna teach them how to ski? Who's gonna walk Sydney down the aisle? And what about the kids I coach? They're the reason I'm Coach Fred. This is the 3rd time I've heard my wife cry. We're in Paris on our 5th bridge of the day. We've really kissed on every one of them. We're still in love. You see, what changed everything was when I was able to trust her enough to sit her down and say, I'm scared. You're beautiful, young, healthy, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to satisfy you again. And she looked back at me, and she was amazed. And all she said was, but all I want is you. I got to Fran's house. Retirement's going good. Why is Fran crying? There's been a lot of tears lately. I asked Fran. She tells me she's crying because she's not worried that her money's gonna run out anymore. She's crying because she knows everything's gonna be okay. Last night, Tommy's mom was crying. You see, a note came home from the teacher. It was Tommy's best week of school. He was focused, productive, and did everything he was supposed to do, and the teacher just wanted to send a note home to his mom. But his mom just wanted to show me the note, because she said, it's you, Coach Fred. It's you who gets him to do his homework. You're the one he listens to. And now I'm on the mountain, the place I love the most, and I'm crying. What a gift. I just got to see Sydney fall in the trees and be scared, but get up, pick herself up, and look over to me. I smiled and said everything was gonna be okay, and she skied right back out onto the trail. How lucky am I to be here today? I'm Coach Fred.
And I'm an Ameriprise financial advisor. Come on, that's right. Yeah. And I wouldn't be an advisor anywhere else. And I'm so excited to be here today and get to share my story with all of you about how I got knocked down and got back up again. And as you can see, the story's got a great ending, but I'm gonna need you to hang in there with me for a couple minutes because it wasn't always so great. Back in 1999, I became a financial advisor. I'd been working for American Express Traveler's Checks, and I was housed with some advisors. And every day, I'd go off to my meetings with the bankers and shake hands and part ways. And every afternoon, I'd come back to my office and I'd see this advisor, Bill Munn, hugging his clients week after week after week. Well, how many retirement parties and graduations from college can there be, right? Well, a year later, I became a financial advisor. And I had what I thought at the time was a solid first year. My wife and I, we had our first baby, Sydney. We bought our first home, and I finished my first year, and everything was great. And it happened to be the time of the platforms. So there I was, a brand new advisor. I had about, I don't know, $4 or $5 million in assets under management, 20, 25 clients, and I went independent because that's what you did at the time. And everything was going along okay, but then suddenly the tech bubble burst and things got a little bit more challenging. And then I had been overpaid a first-year bonus. So I walked in on a Friday and I had a big, huge negative check. And I went 2 months without a paycheck getting out of the hole. And, but somehow it was just enough and we just got by. And then I was really sick. I had diverticulitis and I had been burning the candle at both ends. You know the deal, new advisor in early in the morning, phone calls all day long, in there late at night. And I was home on a Saturday morning and my intestines ruptured. And I rushed off to the hospital, and unfortunately, they made a mistake. They pumped me full of Demerol, and they sent me home because I was already scheduled for a CAT scan on Monday night. And Sunday was my mom's birthday. We had a party. Monday, I went into the office in the suit and tie. And Monday night, I drove myself over to the hospital for that CAT scan. And I had that CAT scan. They scurried around, and they said, "Fred, we're going to have to admit you." I said, "When?" They said, "Now." I said, "Yeah, but I'm in short-term parking. I got to go home and see my daughter. I've got appointments tomorrow." No. So there I was in the hospital for the week as they tried to get me healthy enough to actually do the surgery. And I was scared. I called my father up. I had him come into the hospital. I said, "Dad, I'm really scared." He's like, "Why?" I said, "Well, I think I'm going to be a famous financial advisor." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, Dad, I don't have enough life insurance for my kids. If I die, they're going to talk about me in Paramus, New Jersey forever. The advisor who died without enough life insurance for his kids." My father's like, "What do you mean kids?" "Oh, Dad, we didn't tell you. Lisa's pregnant." Yeah, my wife was 4 weeks pregnant at the time. So there I was. I had an 8.5-hour surgery, and I woke up to a colostomy bag and 58 staples putting me back together, drainage sites all over the place. But I had to get back to the office, right? People were counting on me. So I did that. And I made it through the next 6 months. And I had to go back in and have a second major surgery to put me back together again. And I went in for that second major surgery, and I had another 8-9 hours of turmoil, and I was okay. I survived. And again, I had to get right back to work. And I'll never forget my first day back at work. It was a Monday in September, and I set a couple of appointments, and I got a couple of referrals, and I was so excited. I said to my partner, Joe, "Can't wait for tomorrow. It's going to be another great day. We're going to get this thing going again." Well, that was Monday, September 10th. And my second day back at work, Tuesday, September 11th, wasn't the day I thought it was going to be, right? It wasn't the day any of us thought it was going to be. In fact, for me, it was a wake-up call. You think you got it bad, Fred. Well, unfortunately, I had knots in my intestines that had developed from all that. And for the next 2 or 3 years, I really couldn't digest food. I was on and off a liquid diet, in and out of the hospital. And I had to go back in and have a third major surgery. My wife and I were sitting at the doctor's office. I found out I was going to have the surgery. And for the first time during all this, I started to cry. And Lisa said, "Fred, what's wrong?" I said, "I can't believe I'm not going to be able to ski this winter." She was like, "What? That's what you're going to cry about?" Well, yes, because you see, that's what makes me come alive. So I went in and I had that surgery, and I was pretty angry at this point. Why is all this happening to me? And I went in for the surgery. It was delayed. I got even more angry. I turned on the television. It was the day of the tsunami in Southeast Asia, and people were dying. And it was another wake-up call. "Fred, you think you got it bad. You're here." And fortunately for me, that surgery was a success. And I started to get better, and things started to move along in my practice and my personal life. And fortunately, every year, my beautiful wife, Lisa, she makes an appointment for me for a physical. And if it's in my calendar, I go, right? So I go off, I have a physical, and the doctor says, "Hey, Fred, you know, with your prostate cancer history and the family, maybe we ought to do our first PSA. We do it at age 40, but you're 37 and you're here." I was like, "Same blood?" "Yeah, well, go ahead." I went off on my annual ski trip. I get back, and Lisa says, Fred, the doctor called about your results. I said, what? She never calls after a physical. Call her up, get on the phone. Hey, Dr. Christine, what's going on? The prostate? She says, yeah. So I went and I had a biopsy, and it came back negative. And they said, Fred, don't worry. Go back, come back in 6 months. You're going to be fine. So 6 months later, I went and had another biopsy, and that one came back negative. And they said, don't worry, you're going to be fine. Come back in 6 months. 6 months later, I go back. I have that third biopsy. And that's when my wife, Lisa, and I were in the hallway. She was crying, and I was scared. I was scared, you see, because I knew what it took to survive. I was already a fighter. I was already a survivor. And I knew that when real adversity hits and you can't control anything, the only thing you can control is your attitude. And I did that by focusing on the opportunities that I still had, not the obstacles. And I learned to rely on other people, right? You can't do it alone. And it's funny, as I started to share with people in my life that I had cancer, they were like, oh, Fred, with everything you went through, oh, what a bad time to get cancer. I said, yeah, bad time to get cancer. What? Are you kidding me? No, there's never a good day to get cancer. There's never a good day to face adversity, to lose a loved one, have a child be diagnosed with something. Never. But I had to wait 6 weeks to have the surgery to heal up after the prostate biopsy, so we went to Disney World, because that's what you do. You go make some memories. And I came home and I had that surgery, and they promised me it would be about 2 hours long, but because of all the scar tissue I had, another 8 hours surgery went by. And there I was, home on the couch, again. But oh, by the way, Bear Stearns disappeared this weekend, and it's a global financial crisis, so you better get up fast, Fred. You better get up quick. People are counting on you. And I couldn't do the two things I needed to do. I couldn't rely on other people, because as I started to share with other people that I was struggling, they were like, Fred, what's wrong with you? You survived. You should be happy. But I wasn't. Because you know what? Surviving was great. It was better than a pine box, right? But it's not a lot of fun. And I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to thrive. In fact, as you could see, I wanted to fly. But that wasn't happening. I was struggling. And I couldn't focus on the opportunities I had in my life anymore. All I could see was all the obstacles I'd already hit and all the obstacles in front of me. And as the stock market continued to spiral down in 2008 into 2009 and it hit its low, so did I. Spirit, mind, and body, done. And getting up again for me, it took a conversation with my closest friend, Scott, the guy you see with me heli skiing. We're on the phone one day. He's like, Freddie, I get it. You're going through a lot. It's a tough time. But I got to ask you, when are you going to do something about it? When are you going to do what you do and stand up and fight? I didn't have a good answer for him. We got off the phone. I thought, what am I going to do something about this? When am I going to do what I do and get up and fight? And then I was able to dig down deep, and I started searching for answers because no one was going to give them to me, right? And I had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and I had to get good at starting over, and I had to be okay with getting directions. But what I did is I took the financial planning process that we use every day with our clients, and I started to apply it to the rest of my life. Spirit, mind, and body in every way. I started to write down where I was and where I wanted to be. And then I would take the first most natural step, and if it worked, I would do more of it, and if it didn't, I found something else, and I went from the couch, in the dark, wearing a diaper, holding the puppy, watching old John Wayne movies I'd watched with my father growing up, just waiting for the next 6 hours to go by so I could take another Percocet and kill the pain. I went from there to heli skiing at British Columbia and back on top of the world again. And guess what? For me, it started with taking the dog for a walk. That was the real journey. I had to get up and get going again. And at the end of the day, how did we get to go heli skiing? We figured out it was going to cost $3,600. We were going to go in 18 months. If we each saved $200 for 18 months, there we were living the dream, right? Break it down into manageable pieces. It's that simple. But it didn't happen overnight. It took 3 years. And the first thing I had to do was get out of crisis, right? Because I had people that were counting on me. I had people to take care of, my wife, my children, and my clients. So I got some help, and I got out of crisis, and that was great. I'd survived. But as I said to you all, I wanted to do more than survive, right? I wanted to thrive. And for me, I found this old quote, and it says, "Don't ask what the world needs. Find out what makes you come alive and go and do that." Because what the world needs is more people that have come alive. And for me, that was about fishing and skiing and coaching kids. So I went off and I did that. And I started to look at why I do what I do in my life, right? Life is short, and I don't want to do stuff anymore that I don't really want to do. And I started to look at, why am I an advisor? Why do I keep coming back to this business through all this turmoil and all the problems I've had? And I needed every ounce of courage and strength I could find along the way, so I started to look at the legacy I was given. You see, my grandmother, she got polio when she was age 5. She was pulled around by her aunt in a wagon, and she was able to survive that and go on and thrive and have a family. And then later on in life, her husband died, and she had to go back to work, and she became an executive at AT&T in the 1960s and 1970s when women just didn't do that. And she had financial independence till the day she died, and guess how she did it? By saving money every time she got paid. And then there's my Aunt Carol, her husband, my Uncle Tom. He died of Lou Gehrig's disease when I was 5, and I watched my aunt raise those 4 children on nothing but Social Security. He was a truck driver. He didn't have any life insurance. And then there's my dad. My dad got out of the Army with nothing but the shirt on his back. And then, fortunately, he met my mom, and with the love of a good wife, he was able to raise 2 children, own his own home, send them both to college, and my dad's about to retire with confidence. Why am I an advisor? Because it matters. Because it matters. In fact, right now, it matters more than ever. And so there I went. I went back at it then. I said, well, you know what? I want to have an impact. So I went back to coaching, and I went back to trying to have an impact on my children, and back to my practice again. And the next thing you know, I was having an impact on others. And I knew I was now leaving a legacy that wasn't the famous financial advisor who died without enough life insurance in Paramus, but I was actually having an impact on other people. And that's when it all came together, and I was thriving again. So you could imagine how I felt this past summer the first time I heard about the Confident Retirement Approach. I was at a senior partnering event, and the senior partner got up and he started to bring up this new thing the company was talking about, and he brought it up by asking questions, and I had every single answer. And now he's from Long Island and I'm from New Jersey. We could do this to each other. All of a sudden he says, hey, shut up, Fred, would you? And then I sat there in the back of the room going, yes, yes, yes. Because it's real, because it's true, and I know it. And right now I'm having that conversation with every single one of my clients, and I'm going to make sure I fill up those 4 buckets for everybody I can. And it's not to sell more financial plans or more insurance or annuities, which, by the way, is going to happen. The reason I'm having that conversation and trying to fill up those 4 buckets with every single one of my clients is because I'm going to be able to have a real impact on the world, because anybody who takes care of those 4 things, that's how you thrive, and I know it because that's what I lived. That's the journey I was on. I first had to take care of my essential, my wife, my kids, my clients. But I wanted to have a lifestyle. I wanted to fish and ski and coach. And if I haven't learned that you have to protect yourself from the unexpected, well, I mean, who would? And it wasn't until I was leaving a legacy today as Coach Fred that it all came together and I was thriving. So if we want to help more people thrive, the Confident Retirement Approach is the way to do it, because there's no greater feeling than having an impact on others, and it matters. It matters right now more than ever. Think about where we are in this world. There's an old leadership quote that says, all great leaders have one thing in common. They helped overcome the greatest fears of their people in their time. And other than our personal safety of us and our families right now, what's a greater fear for the people we lead? That they're not going to be able to thrive, that they're not going to have enough money. With the Confident Retirement Approach, filling up those 4 buckets, we can do that. We can actually help people thrive. And right now, it matters more than ever. And there's no greater feeling than having an impact on other people and watching them achieve something that wasn't easy. right? And I learned this because I get to coach soccer. I got asked to be my son's soccer coach, and I thought, man, I'm going to be a great coach because I played soccer. So I went out onto the field with the boys, and I started to teach them how to kick and throw and dribble the ball. We went out the first season, and guess what happened? We got our butts kicked. 2 wins and 8 losses. People were unhappy, playtime, this, that, and the other thing. And I had to go back and look at it and say, well, why am I coaching? I'm not coaching because they're going to be professional soccer players someday. I'm coaching because they're going to grow up and life might kick them in the teeth, and I want to give them some strength so that they can get up. And so I went back and I started talking to the parents and the kids on the team about why I'm coaching and what I wanted them to get out of it. And the next thing you know, I was having an impact that I never thought imaginable. You heard me in the video talk about Tommy and his mom. Tommy has ADHD, 2 younger brothers, and he listens to me. Because if he doesn't, I sit him on the bench. And he does his homework. And now when his mom gets a note from the teacher, she brings it to me. And there's another boy on the team. His name is Shane. And Shane's the last boy to make my team. I only picked him because I had 1 spot left and 5 kids, and somebody in town told me, I don't know how he plays soccer, but he's a tough kid, and he comes from a good family. Tough kid, good family, put him on. And then Shane shows up every day and works harder than everybody else. And 2 or 3 games into it, I don't even want to take him off the field. And then a year later, he's struggling. He's 9 years old. He's diagnosed with Tourette's. And his mom comes down to the field one night, and she's crying. Kelly, what's wrong? She said, well, my husband, Mike, he can't get home from work tonight, and he's really upset. I said, okay. He says, but I told him, what are you worried about? He's with Coach Fred, and that's as good as being with us. And then she told me that she wanted me to know how important it was that her son was on my team, because they had one place right now where they could send their son. They didn't have to worry about him, because at soccer, he comes alive. What did I do for Shane and the boys? I showed up. Showed up when I said I was gonna. And gave my all. Guess what happened, though, after I was having an impact on their lives? Guess what happened? Yeah, we started to win. Yeah. And in the league we play in, you get rewarded if you win. If you win your division, you get to move up and play better competition and get your butts kicked again. And how cool is that the boys I coached, that they bought into that as our goal. We're going to move up so we can lose again. And there we were in the last game of the season, and if we won, we were moving up. And it was halftime. We were tied 1-1. I said to the boys, you do what we do best, and we're going to win. They started talking about the other team and the referees. I said, whoa, it isn't about who we play. It's about how we play. Now, they repeat that when I say that. So everybody repeat that with me for a minute. It isn't about who we play. It's about how we play. And I promise them, if you go out and do what we do best, no one's going to beat us. And they went out back onto the field. It was tied 1-1. And with 5 minutes left in the game, this twin that's on the team, Tomer, he scores a goal, a hustle goal. And with 5 minutes left, my son Andrew and Tommy and Shane, they made play after play after play, and the next thing you knew, we won. And I was suddenly out on the middle of the field, and the parents say they never saw me jump up and down so high. And my son Andrew, he jumped up into my arms screaming, we did it, Dad, we did it. We're going to the B flight. And I never felt so good about any win that I ever had. I never felt so good about anything I'd ever done on my own. To watch those boys achieve this thing that they worked so hard for and wasn't easy, it was the greatest feeling in the world. But to do that, to have that impact, I had to first connect with the boys. I had to connect with them on a personal level, and I did that by sharing stories. I was always trying to find out, what do you got going on outside of soccer? And I would share with them what I've got going on outside of soccer, because there's a lot more to the world than soccer, right? And so when I was going heli-skiing to celebrate beating cancer, I told the boys, Coach Fred's going heli-skiing. They're like, wow, that's amazing. What kind of trail are you going to ski on, Coach? I said, we're not going to ski on a trail. We're going to ski in the trees. They said, well, how do you ski in the trees, Coach Fred? Well, here's what you do. You never look at the trees. You look at the space, because your head follows your eyes, and your body follows your head. So whatever you look at, that's what you're going to hit. If you look at the trees, you're going to hit them every time. But if you look at the space between the trees, it's going to give you an opportunity to make a turn. And then you're going to find the next space and the next space and the next space. And when you're really going good, you're not looking at the turn you're making right now. You're looking 2 or 3 turns down the hill. For our clients, you're the head. You're the eyes. What you focus on is where they go. So are you focused on the opportunities 2 and 3 down the hill? The other thing I tell the boys is, well, if you're going to go ski in the trees, there's 3 things. 1, you better be good enough, practice up. 2, you better have the right technology, the right equipment, right? You better have a helmet. And 3, you never go alone. You see, because even when you're focused on the opportunities and not the obstacles, sometimes you crash. And when you crash, you got to get up. And you might need help getting up, so you never go alone. And that's why our clients shouldn't go off into the trees of retirement without you. They might need help getting up. And you're the ones that are going to be able to do that for them. So I got home from heli-skiing, right? When I got up again and I got there, I got to the top of the world and I saw that view you saw, I realized I did it. Holy cow, I went from the couch to the top of the world, I did it. And I knew I needed to start sharing our story. You see, because it's not my story. I'm not the only one that went through 10 years of turmoil. I'm not the only one that wanted to do more than survive, wanted to thrive. Didn't all of you? Haven't all of our clients? Isn't what the whole country is saying right now today? Great, we survived. Now we want to thrive. You can help them do that. And I made that video to start sharing my story, and the response was incredible. People were like, oh my God, Fred, that's great. Where are you going to write a book? When's you going to make a movie? What are you going to do with this? And I tell you what, it's amazing, but the real power of sharing our stories is not the unexpected. It's not the things that can happen. The real power of sharing our stories is connection. Connection. And you see, I couldn't have done everything I did without all the other people in my life. It's my friends and family, neighbors, that they kept the mailbox always full. They shoveled our snow. They fed our children. They took in my garbage cans. It's the other advisors at my office that I share space with. When I went 2.5 months without a paycheck and my intestines had ruptured and I was fighting for my life, those advisors chipped in out of their pockets to pay my bills and keep me in business. That's the kind of advisors we have here at Ameriprise, advisors like all of you. It's the doctor and the assistants at her office that held me with kid gloves throughout the entire process because guess what? I'm a horrible patient. And oh yeah, a fainter. All the time. It's my father that completely changed the direction of my life. It's my mother that told me, if you never quit, Freddie, you can do anything. It's my grandmother that set the tone for my life, that you work hard, you play hard, you give back to others, you love unconditionally. It's my best friend, Scott, the guy you saw in the video. The day I got cancer, he went home and he cried with his wife, and then he got on the phone to double his cell phone minutes because Freddie was going to need to talk. It's my children, Sydney and Andrew, that give my life purpose and meaning. And it's my beautiful wife, Lisa, who stood in a church with me 17 years ago and vowed to be there with me in good times and in bad, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health. And then she showed up every day and did just that. Connection. It's all about the connection in our lives. And look what happened for me when I started sharing my story. So are you ready to start sharing yours? So I was going heli-skiing, right? And 3 weeks beforehand, my leader at Ameriprise, Tom North, he was coming in to talk about succession planning. Now let me see, I'm about to jump out of a helicopter in 24 feet of snow, wearing an avalanche backpack and a beacon, and Tom's coming in to talk about what happens to my practice if I die or get disabled. Maybe you ought to sit in on this one, huh? But everything was okay. I sat in on that meeting, and my plan's in good shape, so I went off on my trip. And Tom wanted to find out, because he just cared, he wanted to find out how the trip was, so we scheduled some time in his calendar, right? Because if it's in the calendar, we all make it happen. And I went into his office, and he says, Fred, how was the trip? I said, it was great, it was amazing, it was life-altering, and by the way, I made this video today. And he said, I'd love to see the video sometime. Why don't you come back in a few weeks and show it to me? And a few weeks later, I went back in, I showed Tom the video, and he was amazed. He was like, wow, this is great. You mind if I share it? And he saw opportunities I didn't even see. And 3 weeks later, I'm getting an email from Kim Sharon saying, hi, Coach Fred. I'd love to hear your story. And then Tom hired me to do a women's forum, and I gave my first motivational speech, and Bill Williams was there. And the next day, I got an email from him saying, you're amazing. I want you to be the motivational speaker at the 2013 Leadership Conference. What? Next thing you know, I'm at the 2013 Leadership Conference speaking to all the leaders of this company, and then they see my story, and they start sharing it and taking me around the country. And the next thing you know, I'm added to the elite speaker list with Craig Brimhall, Coach Fred. I'm at a recruiting event, and it's Don Froud, Jim Cracciola, and then Coach Fred. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then here I am today, getting to speak to all of you. How'd that happen? And when I realized that I was going to be here, getting to speak to all of you today, I was amazed. I was humbled. I was awed. And I was excited. I was humbled that a regular guy like me would even get to be here today. I was awed because there's probably going to be somebody in this room today that was going through something and they really needed to hear this, and hopefully I'd be able to give them some little gift and help them get through. I was excited because I know from hearing my story, you'll be reminded that when real adversity hits and you can't control anything, the only thing you can do is focus on the opportunities that you have, not the obstacles, and rely on other people. I knew you'd be reminded that what we do matters. It matters right now more than ever, and with the confident retirement approach, we can do more than just help people go from where they want to be, where they are to where they want to be, which is what we do. With the confident retirement approach, we can actually help them thrive. But to do that, you got to lead with your heart, beyond the game of financial planning, and have an impact, and connect, because none of it happens without connection. Connection. It's all the other people in my life. Connection is what allowed me to survive. Connection was what allowed me to have an impact by being trusted and ultimately thrive. So when I found out today that I was going to be here talking to all of you, getting to share my story as Coach Fred, who's a grateful husband and father, youth athletic coach, financial advisor, and cancer survivor. I know that's a mouthful, but I want to be a voice for adaptive families that can continue to move forward regardless of a changing reality and go from where they are to where they want to be. And that's what you all do. So what's your story? What's your story of overcoming adversity and setback? Who are the people in your life, the connections that give you purpose and meaning, strength, and courage? What's the legacy you were given? What is it that makes you come alive? Why do you do what you do? And what's the legacy that you intend to leave? And how does all of that show up with you every day? What's your story? And are you really ready to share it? I'm Coach Fred, and I want you to keep showing up every day and do what you do so well. But step it up and make it personal and connect. Embrace the confident retirement approach so you can have an impact on the world. Lead with your heart beyond the game and help even more people go from where they are to where they want to be and thrive. Because you see, if we do this together, then together we'll all thrive. I'm Coach Fred. How lucky am I to be here today with all of you. Thank you very much for your time. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach Fred. As you can see, he's got a story to tell, and we're glad he had an opportunity with you here today to share it. A couple of things I just want to play off of relative to what he shared with you. I find it fascinating as I sat here listening to Coach Fred, and I've known him a little bit, but I'm going to ask you to reflect on the following question. If you had a child who wanted to play soccer, and they happen to live in Paramus, New Jersey, would you want Coach Fred to be your child's coach? Now, do you want him to be the coach because he was an Olympic soccer player and he knows how to create champions? Or because you know you can trust him and he's going to do a great job at leading your child to be a better human being and to overcome obstacles in their lives? And because he's a real, authentic person. And then the second question is, if you had a relative, a friend, somebody you loved and cared about that needed financial advice, and you couldn't take care of them for one reason or another, and they lived in Paramus, New Jersey area, would you want him to be their financial advisor? I think the same would be true. You'd probably clap for that as well if I gave you time and hadn't kept speaking. You might have clapped and said yes, even though you didn't hear in the last half an hour anything about whether or not he's the best investment planner in the world, best tax manager in the world. You don't know any of those pieces. You just know that from his story and his vulnerability and how authentic he is and how much guts it took to stand up here and tell a story, that you trust the guy. And you probably like him for the story he told you and for his vulnerability, and you're willing to probably refer clients to him if you couldn't handle it. And I'm going to just ask you to reflect, what could it mean in your life if you took the time with your clients, with your loved ones, with your family to get real, get authentic, and tell your story, and get down to your why. Why are you really doing this business? Because I know for most of you, all the people I've met at this conference, it's not because you're getting a paycheck. It's not because you love picking stocks. It's not because you love producing financial plans. It's because you love helping people. And at the end of the day, that's why we're here. So what Pat and I want to do is just thank you. We're humbled by your attendance here. We're honored to serve you as leaders in this organization. And I want you to make a mental note, because you will get an invitation to come back again to a PDC conference in 2014. As soon as that comes out, I want you to put it in the calendar and come back for our next one. Safe travels home. Thanks for being here. Have a great trip home.